The rudest thing that anybody has ever just said directly to your face.
Please don't make this the reason I go viral. So I'm a flight attendant, and one day I was doing service, coming down the aisles with my cart. I asked a gentleman and his wife, may I get you anything? The gentleman says, yeah, I'll take a coffee, and the wife just stares at me. I'm like, everything okay? The gentleman says, yeah, everything's fine. She just doesn't talk to the help. The help. And if you're asking, yes, they were.
The rudest thing that anybody has ever just said directly to your face.
In 7th grade, I was sitting in the front row of my class, and my teacher was standing directly in front of me when she noticed that I had this scar on my neck. And with the placement that it is, she said, what is that? And I said, it's a scar. It's a dog bite from when I was younger. And she says, no, that looks like a hickey. And I was like, nope, it's a scar. It's a scar. Talk to my parents. It's a scar. It's a scar. And she says, and I quote, you must be a really big slut to have hickey that big, in front of the entire class. Part 2 of when my teacher assumed that this scar was a hickey. So after my teacher had made that comment, she actually just laughed it off and continued on with the class. Yeah, that's pretty awful to think back now on it. Like, she just laughed and continued on. Nobody else laughed in the class, just her. But I remember looking at her like, did she just say that? It's important to know, though, that I used to get comments like that all the time, and I still get them, like today, and I'm 26 and married. So as I'm reading through your comments, I am realizing I was a very stupid 7th grader. Yeah, never told my parents, like never told them. So they had no idea anything about it until today, until I showed them my TikTok. Yeah, now they're pissed that I didn't tell them about it. My dad and I have already done some research on this chick. She's no longer a teacher. She doesn't work at the school that this happened at. No longer a teacher. I did see other comments with similar stories to mine, and it just kind of goes to show you that there are assholes out there like this.
The rudest thing that anybody has ever just said directly to your face.
Okay, I woke up with a terrible headache, but the story needs to be told, right? The most disrespectful thing wasn't when I was at Krispy Kreme and they called me Donut Boy. It wasn't when they said I looked like Drake if YOLO stood for you objectively look old. It was when I was at work and there was a coworker I've never met before. Like, he was talking to me, but he didn't know he was talking about me to me, if that makes sense. He was like, hey, there's some kid named Jordan that works here. I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, and I'm hearing he's pretty weird. I'm like, really? He was like, yeah, I heard he like slaps the bean bags. I'm like, he probably does it ferociously. He was like, yeah. Then he said, oh, I also heard that he eats lunch, like he likes honey bunches of oats for lunch. I'm like, it's pretty healthy, right? And he was like, why are you defending honey bunches of oats? I'm like, no fucking reason. What else did they say about Jordan? They're like, oh, they say that he's really hairy. I'm like, that's just disrespectful. I'm Jordan. Come on, you got to stop.
The rudest thing that anybody has ever just said directly to your face.
Let me preface this with a couple things. 1, I'm 5 feet tall. 2, at the time my tits were 32 triple E, which technically doesn't even exist, but let's just say that they were larger than life. Now, it's Halloween night, I'm a freshman in college. I just met my guy friend's new girlfriend, and for some reason she didn't like me. I didn't really care, I didn't really think much of it. Not everyone has to like you in your life. This girl had been an absolute bitch to me all night, okay? I didn't really care, I was in my moment. I was hammered. I was downing strawberry lemonade vodka shots like it's nobody's goddamn business. I'm in the backyard with my roommate and a couple of my friends. This girl walks up to me with her posse of girls, okay, and ambushes me in the corner. Now, let the record show I was super self-conscious of my body at the time. I knew everyone was staring at me, and I knew that they were only staring at me for my tits. This bitch walks up to me, totally out of context like it's goddamn No Nuance November, and goes, your tits are too big, and they make you look ugly. Like, girl, what? What do you want me to do?
The rudest thing that anybody has ever just said directly to your face.
I was at Walmart buying my 4-month-old daughter formula whenever this old lady approached me from the back and started looking kind of weird, but I thought she was going to compliment how cute my baby girl was. And she looks at me and says, you look a little young to be a mom. And I just smiled and I was like, I am, because people say that all the time. It doesn't really bother me. And then she proceeds to tell me that I better make sure that I'm taking good care of her, because there are a lot of mature older people who can't have kids that would love to have my daughter. So I better make sure that I'm taking good care of her because there are people out there that want her. How freaking weird is that?
What's the rudest thing that anybody has ever just said directly to your face?
So when I was in third grade, my school had found out that my stepdad had been just beating my brother and I senseless. CPS came, took us away from my mom. Fast forward a year later, we go to court. The judge looks at her and says, you can have your husband or you can have your kids, but you can't have both. She looks at us, she looks back at the judge and goes, I'd rather have my husband. Fucking bitch. This is a part 2 for those of you who asked. Things did not get better for us. However, our stepdad and mom did get divorced a few years later, so that was nice. But we got adopted by our birth grandmother after we were in a group home. Our birth grandmother, in a way to get more money from the state for adopting kids with disabilities, she started to over-medicate us with narcotics in order to create disabilities, or at least have the symptoms of them. But she did create disabilities. Mine were all physical. I started to develop these issues where my body would convulse really badly. It was like a seizure, but wasn't. Blood would just gush from my nostrils because of the burst blood vessels and stuff like that. My brother had it mental. So he was in and out of group homes, in and out of psych wards, stuff like that, got 5150'd. And while he was away, she was sexually abusing me. So this went on for years. Yeah, things didn't get better. So the sexual abuse, I had it stopped when I was like 15. I left when I was 16 because she was still over-medicating me, and I was talking to my doctor, and he's like, I think you can, I told him I don't want to be on these anymore. He's like, I don't think you need to. So I went off all of them. She absolutely hated this because I wasn't medicated and like essentially drugged anymore. So I started to get my right mind, and I left. I bounced around to a few different homes after that until I was, actually for the next good portion of time, actually for a long time, years. My brother, on the other hand, I got him out of the group home. I went and took him, and he said he had a place to go. He'd been in contact with people. I'm like, cool. I drive him to the house, and who of all fucking people, it's our birth mom. He got back into contact with her. She wanted to make amends with him or whatever. That was fine. I tried to. She's still just super toxic, but that was the only way we can get him out. So he went on to live his life, and he's been an addict for off and on for a while now. And yeah.